Okay, so in this video what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use Canva to create a logo. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how I created this logo here. Okay, so I created this logo for a site that is supposed to be focused on traveling. So you can see here that it looks like a compass, right? And then I have below it travel. Okay, so I'm going to go through how I created this using the controls in Canva. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to bring this up larger so that I can snap it to one side of my screen, and I can use it as a reference. So I'm going to open it in a new window. So I'm right clicking on it and clicking on open in new window. Good, so that's it there. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just pull this to one side here, and you don't need to do this, right? I'm just doing this to show you how I'm coming up with the shape for this logo. Okay, so you don't have to do this. I'm just doing this as a reference. So I'm going to pull this around a bit, pull this around a bit here, and good. So I have my workspace on the right side, and I have what I'm trying to emulate on the left side. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to go to the custom dimensions link here at the top, well, near the top, and I'm going to put in 200 by 200 because I'm going to make this logo at 200 pixels wide by 200 tall. Okay, and I'm going to create new design, and good. And again, to repeat, you don't have to have your computer set up like this. You don't have to put this window on this side and then have Canva on the right side. I'm just doing this just to have it there so we can see what's going on. Okay, so here, what you generally do when you're creating a logo is that you want to look at the logo and you want to break it down into constituent shapes. Okay, so if you look here, we can see that this isn't too complex a shape. This is essentially a large circle on the outside, then with an inner circle. Okay, so this is two circles. That's the outline here. And then we have this arrow here in the center, right? So if we look for a picture of a compass, so let me do that. So if I come here, compass, and click on images, you can see here that that's kind of like basically what a compass looks like. Okay, so we have like this rim going around, and then we have a face, and then inside we kind of like have this arrow that tells us what direction we're pointing in. Okay, and you know, you have your north, your east, your south, and your west, but I'm just going to keep it simple for this particular situation here. So I'm going to come back to where I was working in Canva. So good, so I have my blank space here, my canvas here at 200 by 200 pixels, and I'm ready to start adding things. Okay, so as I said, breaking this down into the different pieces, you can see that's two circles and then this shape here. Okay, and then the text on the bottom, obviously. So I'm going to start by adding the circles. So what you have to do is you have to come to elements, and what I want to do is I want to come to shapes, and I want to add a circle. So good, so that's my circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it have this particular color. And to do that, I'm going to click here on color. And let's see, I think that this would be it here, yellow. Good, so that's the color there. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to increase the size of it, because we can see here that this circle is taking up a good set of space there. Okay, so I'm going to increase the size of it to about here. And then I'm going to center it. Okay, so I'm just going to drag it until it's central. I'm going to leave some space at the top. So I'm going to put it about there. Good. Okay, so that's good. So that's one circle. And now I want to add another circle to get the rim effect. Okay, so I'm going to click here on the circle again here. And it's added the circle. You can see that I'm having difficulty seeing the circle because it is the same color as our original circle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color to this color here. or a color that is close to that color. So to do that, what I'm going to do again is that I'm going to click on color, and I'm going to, and if we look here, we can see here that in our default colors, we don't really have a color that matches this color. So what I would have done is I would have come here to the color wheel, and I would have adjusted how dark it is, okay? So I'm going to make it a little lighter, and it's about here, okay? It might not be the exact same thing, but I'm just showing you how you can do it. I'm not necessarily trying to emulate the exact same thing. So I'm just going to change the hue a little bit because I think it's a little bit paler. Good. And you can just adjust this until you get something that you're happy with. I'm going to just make that a little bit paler like that. Maybe bring it back a bit more. Good. And I'm okay with that. Good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to center this relative to the larger circle. Okay. So again, you can use the guidelines to orient things with regards to each other. So good. So I've centered it horizontally. Right. So it's horizontally centered, and it's also vertically centered in terms of this larger circle. Okay. So something else is that the inner circle here is a bit larger. Okay, the rim is smaller there, so I'm going to increase the size of this. I'm going to drag this out, and then I'm going to recenter it. And I'm going to increase the size of it a bit more, and then I'm going to center it. So good, so that's about the size there, okay? Good. So we have our rim, and we have a face for our compass, okay? I don't like that shade of color though. I want this to be a little bit lighter. So let me, about there, and about there, okay. That was kind of bugging me. About there, okay. It's not the same thing, but I'll leave it there for now. Okay. Good. So what we can do now is that we can look at creating this arrow or pointer or whatever you want to call it here in the center of our compass here. So to do that, what you could try doing is that you could try looking through the elements and seeing if you could find something similar, right? But what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to show you how you can create new shapes that may not be available by layering different shapes on top of each other, okay? So to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take these two shapes I have here already. So I'm going to select both, and to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put my cursor to the side of them, click and hold, and drag across them so that it selects both. And you can see that both are selected because you can see that there's a selection box around both. So this is the one for the smaller circle, and this is the one for the larger circle. So what I want to do now is that I want to lock these elements in place so that I can work on top of them and not worry about displacing them, okay? So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on the lock, and they're now locked, okay? So if I come here and I try to move them, nothing's going to happen. Good. So what I want to do now is that, as I said, I want to layer some shapes on top of each other to produce this pointer, okay? So to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a square first. Good, and the square is going to come in with this color here, so I'm going to change this to black, and then I'm going to center it, and then I'm going to bring it in so that it lays within the bounds of our inner circle here. So I'm going to adjust it so it's about there, and now it's centered. Good. So what I want to do is that I want to take additional shapes and apply the color of the inner circle to those shapes on top of the square in order to get this effect, okay? So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to add another square. And what I want to do with this square is that I now want to put this in the same color as our inner circle. And what I want to do now is that now that I have the shape selected and I have the color here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just hover my cursor over it, and I'm going to note what color it is saying that this has here, the color code, okay? So the color code is FAF5DB, okay? So I want that to be the color of the new objects I'm adding, right? FAF 5dB. So I'm going to click here on the new square I've added. And because I selected the circle again, it brings that here, okay? But if it didn't, what I could do is I could just come here to new color and type in hashtag FAF 5dB. Good. And that's our color. Good. So now what I want to do with this is that I want to make this a little slimmer. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the handle on the right or left and I'm going to bring it in, okay? Like that. And I want it to be pretty narrow. I want it to be about there. Good. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm now going to rotate this. And I want it to be, let's say, about 35 degrees. About there. Good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start layering objects on top of this black area here to get this result, okay? So I'm going to bring this down a bit more, and I'm going to bring it in to about here. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock these objects again because I don't want that when I'm making these adjustments, this causes the objects on the bottom to move around. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to lock them. So I'm just going to select them again, and I'm going to lock. Good. So I just want to deal with what I'm doing on top. Good. So now I have this in place. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to duplicate this object. So remember that duplication can be done with either with this button, or I can hold Alt on my keyboard and then click and hold on the object and pull away, and it will duplicate it like that. Good. So then what I'm going to do with this is that I'm going to rotate this. Now let's see, I'm going to rotate this by 75. Let me see how that looks. Not 75. So I'm just eyeballing this and I'm just trying to get it as close as possible. So there is some degree of trial and error here. So let me see, I'm going to bring this back down to 65. I think 65 is the angle that I want. So let me bring this here. Okay, I think I'm going to have to adjust this angle a bit. So I'm just going to play with this until I get something resembling this. So I'm just going to adjust this again. So I'm going to put this at, let's say, 30. Put this here. And this, now I'm going to adjust this again. I'm going to put this at 60. Put this back here. Good, I think we're getting somewhere. So I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to make them a little bit slimmer. So I'm just going to take this handle and bring it in a slight bit. Same thing with this. Not too much, about there. Good. And what I'm going to do now is that, now that I kind of have the desired shape on one side here, I'm going to duplicate both of these. So to do that, what I'm going to do is that, so let me just unselect them to show you. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on one, and then I'm going to hold Shift and click on another one, well, the other one I should say, and that's going to select both, okay? So what I have to do now is I have to press and hold Alt on my keyboard, or again we can use the button here, but I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard, click and hold on the two objects, and then pull, and that's my duplicate, okay? So from here now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to rotate this by 180 degrees to put this on the other side, okay, to complete the shape. So I'm going to hold here on the rotation handle here, and I'm going to pull it around. I'm going to look for where it says 180 degrees. Okay, so there. And then what I have to do now is I have to pull it into position. So I'm going to grab and pull, and that looks like it there. Good. Okay, so you can see here that I have my shape here, but the only thing though is that it's a bit too fat. Okay, I don't have it as fat here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have to make the angle between these rectangles a bit more acute. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to deselect or unselect the two that I just copied there, and I'm going to come to each one individually and rotate it by another, let's say 5 degrees. So I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to rotate this in by 5 degrees. So it's moved slightly away from the point here, so I want it to come back here, so I'm just going to take it and pull it back in like that. Good. And this one I'm going to have to rotate this also by 5 degrees just to keep it consistent. So I'm going to rotate this in by 5 degrees, click and hold again and pull it back to where it was originally, which is about here. Good. And we can see already that it's starting to get a bit more slender. Okay, so I'm going to do it on the other side. Again, I'm going to rotate inward by 5 degrees, pull it back into position. Oh, oops, wrong handle. Hold on. Undo that. So I undid that by holding Control and pressing Z. So again, I'm going to grab it, and make sure you grab the object itself and not the handles. Okay, I'm going to pull it back in position, which is about here. Okay, so it's giving me some trouble to position with the mouse. So a quick tip is that if you want to move something, you can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just using the arrow keys on the keyboard, and it's about that position there. And then I'm going to click finally on the last one I have to adjust, which is this one, and again I'm going to pull it inward by 5 degrees, so in this direction by 5 degrees, so to 145. Good. And then I'm going to pull it back in position, so I'm going to pull it back to here. Giving me a little trouble. It's about there. Let me just use the arrow keys to finish it. And good. So you can see now that I have the basic shape in place. Okay, although I do have to do a bit of an adjustment here, so I'm just gonna, so this is pretty much just me playing with it just to get it how I want it to be. Okay, so I'm just going to, let's see, what am I going to do? I'm going to just adjust this a little more, or maybe what I should do is I should pull this around a bit. Let me see. Click here, and I don't want to pull it out, I want to pull it in slight bit. Just use the arrow key a bit here, and that looks about right. Look at it. Okay, that looks about what I want it to be. So now what I have to do is I just have to find a way to eliminate these black areas that I don't want. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to adjust the width of this a bit more. Good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull it around a slight bit. Now that's causing some problems there. Okay, let me pull it down. Just let me reduce the width a slight bit. Okay. Okay, let me grab this and let me pull this down a slight bit like that. Yeah, good. That covers that. Good. And I still maintain the shape pretty much, which is what I want. Good. This now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, no, let me do it from, no, let me do it from here. I'm just going to pull that around. Good. That covers it. And let me see here as well. Let me do that. Let me just make sure that it's still contained. Yes. Good. With this one, let me see. Let me pull this around here. Good. It's still contained. Good. So I have my shape, and I just have these two areas here to deal with. So to cover those areas, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use triangles. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to adjust the color again to get to the pale creamish color that I have here for the face of my compass. I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to use this to cover this area here. Okay, that's a bit too far. Pull it in. Make sure I cover. It's got a bit there that's uncovered. Let me just adjust that a bit. It's still too far. So I'm going to use the arrows now to position it a little better. Let me click here, just use the arrow to pull it around. Still a bit exposed. Do it again. Okay, that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this and then put it on this side now. So again, to duplicate, I can use either this button here, or I can hold the Alt key, click and hold, and pull to bring a new object out in that shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this to cover the other side. So I rotate it to about there, about 90 degrees. Pull this down, and good. So it covers the other side. So now we can see here that I have, oh, hold on. Let me pull this up away from there. I'm just using the arrow keys just to slightly adjust it so that it doesn't poke out from the rim here. Good. So you can see here that I have a shape that's pretty much the same as what I have here, okay? So now that we've completed our shape, what I can do is that I can select them all and I can group them, okay? So what grouping does is that grouping is going to treat them all as if they're one object. But no, I'm not going to group these. I'm not going to group these. Come to think of it. What I'm going to do with these is that I'm going to lock them, okay? So I'm going to select all of them and I'm going to lock them instead. Not group, I'm going to lock. So now what happens is that any changes I make are not going to affect them, okay? So if I try to move anything here, it's not going to respond. Good, so that's what I want it to be locked. And finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some text here at the bottom. So you can see here that I have travel. So I'm going to click on the text section here. And I'm going to add a heading. So I guess I have my heading here. I'm just going to pull it down. Put it to about there. Good. And I'm going to double click in here to highlight what's inside here. And I'm going to backspace it out and type in travel in capitals. Not travels, travel. Good. And then what I can do is that, I can increase the size by coming here and clicking, and I can make it 18. Looks like I have it a bit bigger in my picture, so I'm going to put it, well, in my completed logo. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Good. And you can also adjust the font. So if I come here, you can see here that I have a wide list of different fonts that I can use. And I believe the one that I used here was the archival black font. But if you don't like that one, you can keep scrolling, and you can pretty much pull in a whole bunch of different fonts. But some of them are paid, okay? Some of them, the ones here that have the crowns on them, these are paid fonts, so those are the ones you might not want to use because you'll have to pay money. So now I'm just going to click on archival black. You can see here that it has adjusted how my font looks now to look a lot more similar to what I have here. Okay? Good. So we've now finished the basic shape of our logo. And what you can do is that when you're done, you can click here on download. And you can choose the file type you want your work to be saved as. So PNG is the standard for images such as logos. JPEG is another image type, but PNG saves images in a much more high quality format. You have PDF, you have PDF print, MP4 video, GIF. Good, so I'm going to leave it as PNG. And there are some paid features here, so you can pay to adjust the size of your logo. You can pay to adjust the transparency, so you can pay to have, so we can see here that we have a background here, okay? So the background by default is going to be white, but generally with a logo you're going to want it to have a transparent background so that you can put it on anything and it's not going to conflict in terms of the coloring, okay? So that's what that's for. And then you can also compress the file. But in order to get away from this background issue, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the background to the color that I know I'm going to have as the background on my website, okay? So I know that the color that I'm going to be doing is E7, 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 okay? So this grayish type color. So this is how I'm going to get away from worrying about background transparency, okay? Because obviously if the background is the same color as what you're placing the logo on, it's not going to have a conflict, okay? So everything here is done, so what I can do now is I can download. So the only setting we can really change here is the file type, so I'm just going to leave it on PNG, and then I'm just going to click download. And good, so there we go. That's my image there, downloaded to my computer. And that's it for this little tutorial on how you can adjust your, how you can create your logo in Canva.